All right.
Sooner Nation, Thunder Nation, we are back. This is the Just Okay Sports Podcast. I'm one of your village idiots, Daryl. I am here with my brother, Jared. And again, this is the Oklahoma Sports Podcast, otherwise known as Just Okay. Please like, subscribe, leave a 5-star review. Do whatever you can to make other people endure the same pain that you are by listening. So, with all that said, Jared, how are we, sir?
I'm doing good. We got to start talking about weather, right? Isn't that our thing? We start talking about weather.
Yeah, we
Uh,
have had a lot of weather discussions.
yeah, no, it's been good. It's been a busy weekend. Yesterday I took most of the day to watch football. I mean, it was like a long day of football because I even watched most of the USC game. I think I stopped watching in like the last couple of minutes or whatever. But it's like, dude, it's kind of crazy, especially now living on the East Coast. I know it's only an hour difference, but it's like some of the games don't end until like 1 a.m. or something. You know what I mean? What's funny is I was watching the
Yeah.
USC game and I watched it all the way up until the Japanese Grand Prix started at 1 a.m. So, but yeah, today's just been being an adult. I feel like Frank from old school, it's like, oh, if we can get it all in today, I don't go Bed Bath Beyond, Home Depot. I just don't know if we can get it all in, like that kind of thing. So, but how are things for you, you idiot?
It's been good. I will agree with you. When we lived in Massachusetts, man, watching sports was hard. Because like I always wanted to watch the Thunder games when I still lived out there, and it was the same, dude. It was like games starting at like 10:30 at night, and it was just like, oh my Lord. Whereas I have a friend now that's living in Washington. He's like, dude, it's magnificent. Games are on at like 8:30 in the morning, and they're all over by like 4 in the afternoon. I'm just like, God, that's like
Yeah.
crazy. So yeah, that all is great. But no, good. Full week, lots of stuff going on, but really good stuff. Had a great morning at church this morning and was excited about that. So we had an awesome tailgate at the Edmond Santa Fe, which by the way, dude, got to go to the Edmond Santa Fe game. We didn't even put this in the notes. So I'm going off script. I'm pulling a Troy right here. But being at the Santa Fe game, got to see Josh Isosa, who is our offensive guard commit from Edmond Santa Fe, and Bergen Kaiser, who is our preferred walk-on commit from there, who plays. Dude, that dude played defensive end, defensive tackle, tight end, punter, holder for place kicks. Like, he was everywhere on the field and got double and triple teamed all night and still made plays. But dude, they have this kid, I believe his name is Demarius Robinson. Their running back. I bet you that dude ran for about 300 and something yards the other night against Emma Memorial. Like,
Oh, Lord.
it was like, here's an example. It's 31 seconds to go till halftime. They have the ball on like the 26-yard line or so on their own 26, right? So
Right.
they give a handoff. You know how it is, like, oh, if we break it, right? But really, you're just kind of running clock out. Oh no, he breaks it and gets all the way to the other 15-yard line before he's knocked out of bounds eventually. And I mean, it was run like that time after time. And I actually know one of their coaches on the Santa Fe staff. And I was like, dude, you told me y'all's running back was good, but I did not. And he goes, dude, we call him Cheat Code. That's his nickname. And check this out. I didn't know this. As a freshman, he rushed for 1,600 yards. Last year, he got injured and was out the entire season. So, I mean, they've got, dude, that kid's a player. And I mean, I need to go watch him probably against some other people, but dude, I'm watching that kid just going, why are we not offering this guy? Because he's got it all. It was crazy. So full week, fun week, but it was all good. It was all good. So any Florida man happenings?
Oh man, when is there, dude? Okay, yeah, there is one. I tweeted about this, or I retweeted it. There was an incident. It was not that far from where, I mean, and nothing's really that far from where I live, but I don't think it was like, it's maybe like an hour and a half if it's where I understood it was. These cops were driving down the road, and at least the way the article made it sound, they were like driving down the road and they saw a body and like pulled over and then like went to retrieve the body, and there was like a giant gator, and they figured out that
Oh,
the body
yes.
had
I
ate the
saw,
gate,
yeah.
had killed the guy. And I was like, bro, like that's the most Florida thing I've ever heard in my entire life. So, um, So yeah, it was like, and I was like, that's just a normal Tuesday here. I don't, let's don't worry about it. So yeah, it's one of those like uh just things that happens. Like, like I've already like desensitized to like there was an article that was coming out on the news where like they broke like the police like raided a house and there was like 85 ball pythons or something that were living in this house that this person was like, I'm like, yeah, that's just normal. It's probably one of my neighbors or something. Don't worry about it. But
Right.
anyway, so yeah, it's like I guess it's like, and I guess we're like in that weird time where it's like cooling off. Like it's cooled off a lot in the last
Yeah.
couple weeks. So I think like the wildlife's starting to move, and like it's all reptilian, so it's got to like go to different places, and that's what even like one of my neighbors was saying. Like, especially if you go like further, a little bit further south, where that's more common to see gators and snakes and stuff, you have to watch out on the highways, even because they'll try to walk out on the highway to get the warmth off the road.
Oh,
When it gets
dang.
cooler at night and stuff. So
That's
yeah,
crazy.
so
Wow.
just normal
Wow.
Florida stuff.
Normal Florida stuff. Well, speaking of normal, the Sooners were back into a normal place this week of winning, which was nice. Capping off a big road win, giving themselves a 4-0 record as they win 20-6 against Cincinnati. And so just really quick as we just kind of get into it, Jared, kind of what are some you have just any just overall thoughts? Maybe start with your positives on the game overall, your 2 or 3 things that you saw and were really pleased with or walked away excited about.
Well, Danny Stutzman's that dude. Um,
Yeah.
Danny Stutzman, I even tweeted this at the Oklahoma breakdown when they were asking like for what my takeaway was. Like right now, obviously, like I haven't followed every team and exactly what their stats are, but it's like how is Danny Stutzman? I mean, I know like it's way early in the season, but it's like if you were like voting right now on the Butkus Award, I don't know how he's not the front runner at this point
Yeah.
in the season. And I even saw somebody like compare him to like Manti Te'o's stats, like if his stats were carried out through the season or whatever, he keeps performing that way, then it's like his stats would be better than Manti Te'o, his
Mm,
Heisman when he was Heisman runner up or whatever.
yeah.
So yeah, so Danny Stutzman's that guy. Was really pleased to see we're gonna get into this later. So I do want to preface this, but the defensive line I thought actually played maybe its best game.
Yeah.
Um, we'll talk about why they maybe didn't light up the stat sheet as much. Um, but the defensive line looked way much improved. PJ is putting it together, man. That guy's, I mean, what? It's his 4th game, and it
Yeah.
already feels like he's made major strides from game to game, and we already think that his ceiling is ridiculous. So, yeah, that, and then it's just the other thing is like, I know that we didn't light up the stat sheet on offense, but I'm going to give an offensive thing. Um, Honestly, the receivers are just so good. Like our receiving core
Yeah.
is ridiculous. Anthony has been phenomenal basically all season.
Yeah.
We've already talked about Nick Anderson and several Farouk and all those other guys. It's like when we came into this season, it was funny because we talked about it and we considered it may be a shallow or not nearly as deep of a position as some of the other position groups, just because there was a lot of potential, but nobody really proven.
Right.
Farouk had the most playing time, but Farouk at that point had been like flashes, but not consistent. Anthony was the same, where like when he was at Michigan, he showed flashes while he was there, but never was like
Mm-hmm.
an every game contributor. And dude, like really, it's crazy how good it is. So like honestly, that's my 3 things: is receivers, D line, and really the linebackers overall. Because even when Koenig went down,
Yeah.
um, they for one, Danny slid over and Kip,
Right.
so it was like, and you really didn't like, for one, good on Danny for being able to play a totally different
Mm-hmm.
position, and good on Kip to be able to come in and be all over the freaking field.
Right.
So like I said, the linebackers, I think that's to me, that's starting to see Venables, which apparently Urban Meyer, did you hear about the whole Urban Meyer, what he said?
No.
He was like, basically before the game, he was like saying how like he didn't know how to feel about Oklahoma and he wasn't sold on him and he didn't think that like he was like, Brent, I don't know if I'm just buying into, he's a great D coordinator, but I don't know buy into this, blah, 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 blah. And then like at halftime, he was like, well, so you can see that Brent's got his hands on the defense, and that's why this team is so, so good. And I was like, bro, like, you can't even remember the bull crap you sold like an hour ago, but whatever. Um, but yeah, you can just see, like I said, the fact that the linebackers have taken such a massive step.
Yeah.
I still don't think they're perfect, but I mean, I don't know the unit that's going to be, so I'm just very impressed with that. You can see his fingerprints all over that. So,
Yeah.
what's your three big positives?
Well, I just had this thought we didn't even have in the rundown, but shout out to Jaron Canick for being healthy and okay.
Yep.
That was a pretty gnarly situation. Like when it first happened, I thought, I don't know, didn't like seem anything big, but then you heard the sideline reporter say that she saw blood on his mouth, and you could see him kind of on the field coughing and stuff. And so then it was like, dang, dude, like he puncture a lung or something. Like what happens, And so, super great news to hear that he was released from the hospital and going to ride the bus home with everybody, all that stuff. Um, hey, look, I don't know why the hate is so high. I mean, I've made it through 3/4 of true film study, but man, outside of 2 throws, really impressed with Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel is a better quarterback right here, right now than he was last year. And I know that we've said that, but you were playing an uptick in talent, right? And especially on that D line. And he did have pressure on him throughout the day. That he had to kind of work through, see through. But like I put notes down, like early in the game, he has a great throw to Gavin Freeman right over the middle. I posted one on Twitter. If you go to Just Okay Sport on Twitter, you'll see on there that he's got one where he takes a shot right into the grill as he lets the ball go, still finds Drake Stoops and puts it on a dime to him. I know he missed the deep ball to Farouk.
Was
Man,
that?
yeah, it's
Let me ask that because I did watch the first quarter. I still feel like Farouk just kind of like was a little gassed and just didn't really turn and run under it.
I don't know. It's hard. Like when I watched it live, I thought, I don't know. But I was listening to the radio broadcast as they were watching that, and that's what Teddy Lehman said. He goes, "That's not Farouk's normal get down the field kind of speed." And one thing I meant to do, and I was watching play by play, and I forgot, is I wanted to track how many plays Farouk had been on the field for because he had a catch or two on that drive. And I
Yeah.
am curious how gassed he was. But even so, he was so open. That's a ball you just got to put out there and make sure he's going to catch. That's not one you have to worry about. The one he misses to Jaden Gibson on the left side, I mean, a miss, but the coverage is good. I mean, so in the sense of not putting the ball in harm's way, him throwing it out of bounds is not a bad deal. But I'm of the mentality of go give Gibson a shot, right? But all that to say, Dylan Gabriel played really, really, really well. And again, he is better than he has been. And we've said this before, but when you really do stop and process, like even watching that USC game, like Dylan Gabriel's not Caleb Williams. Like he's
Yeah.
not. And there's like less than like a percent of a percent that could even claim to be in the category of Caleb Williams. Well, that was our quarterback before Dylan, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Kyler Murray is in that category. But I mean, the guys that he followed are just so good. We can't imagine anybody missing a pass. And the reality is that's not uncommon.
Well,
Um,
well, even like the Jaden Gibson ball, it's like I saw that and I was like, and I was trying to tell people, it was like, yeah, it was a miss, but it's not like, last year he would have sailed that 10 yards over his head into the stands. You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
like like I said, again, a miss, but it's like that's like one of those more of like dial it back a few percent and that's a good throw sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah. Well, and again,
inches or
the
sort of
coverage
something.
was there, right? So
Yeah.
you don't know. Maybe DG's thought process is, look, that's my read. He's covered. I'm just going to throw it. If he just makes a circus catch, great. But if not, we're safe, because that is
Right.
one thing DG does well is he does not put the ball in harm's way hardly at all, right? Last year, it was guys running wide open that he was missing, and we're not really the Farouk one's really the only one I could find there. So that's my one. Two, man, how about this? I'm going to say safeties. To think that you're down Reggie Pearson You're down a cheetah, position. So they were rotating some guys even in over there a little bit. But the development, like, think about this. At what point did you look at the screen and say, what's Key Lawrence doing? Like, I can't
Yeah.
think of a single play, right? Last year, that was constant. And the year before, under Grinch, that was constant. Like, he has been
He had
developed.
flashes. He had flashes, but he's consistent. It's the consistency.
Yeah, but that's development. I mean, that, like, you want to see if this staff can develop you or not. Just look at that. Look at Ethan Downs, who is playing much better right now. But the safeties overall, man, just their ability, their speed, it is something to look at. And then, yeah, I would say the big win is you really can see development overall across the board. Like I said, Ethan Downs looks better than he did a year. Marcus Stripling looks better and is making plays when he's on the field, when we thought that was a guy that for sure was going to transfer, and he's making the most of it,
Danny Stutzman, Jaron Kanik. I mean,
yeah, I mean, across the board. And even like DG is better right now than he was a year ago. That's the wide receivers. Jaden Gibson, like, how many drops has he got this year? Oh, I can tell you none. He has 0, right? Like, that's development. Like, last year we could not get separation at all. It was constantly being draped by defensive backs. This year that's not there. So just the development of this team is great. Are they world beaters? No. But they are much, much improved, no doubt about it. So
right.
I would say that. Now, look, 20-6. We said this would be a scrappy game before we went into it. We said this defense was good. I was the one tooting the horn that this past defense was better than anybody gave it credit for. And I think that they showed that. I think their DB showed that a little bit in this game. But even so, you walk away with a 20-6 victory. So we've talked about the good. Now, Jared, what do you think did you see in this game that needs to be better?
I mean, I'm going to go with something that I know you would pick, but the offensive line. I mean, the offensive line in
Yeah.
the first half was not very good,
Yeah.
especially in the run game. I think again I think they hold up decent in pass pro, but yeah, just in the run game they just could not do a whole lot. I saw maybe like one hole in the first half that was, a good hole, not something that somebody's going to literally try to squeeze through. So yeah, that's got to get better. I mean, and it's just one of those things that it's even like beyond the season of when you go to the SEC, you're going to get demolished.
Yeah.
Against some of those defensive lines. And then 2, I gotta go with, like, oh man, I know you're probably gonna hate this. I'm gonna pick on one person. Marcus Major. He ended up having a decent game, but the first half, I just don't. Here's what I don't understand. I guess maybe it's not even Marcus Major. It's maybe a DeMarco question. Maybe it's a Jeff Levy question. I don't know who's making the call. Marcus Major started out rough. I think we can all agree on that, right? Like, he had the one good run and he starts off rough. Then he put in Tawi, and then you drive down the field. Tawi makes plays the whole way down the field. And then you immediately pull him out and put Marcus Major in. And, so I don't understand this. And I don't get it, because like we heard after the SMU game, well, it's about finding who has the hot hand and who's, really kicking at that time or whatever. It's like, okay, well, what did you see from Tawi in that series that didn't have the hot hand, and then he put Marcus Major in, who then is not able to do a whole lot. Again, later on in the game, they were able to start doing stuff, but again, the offensive line was playing way better. So you know what I mean? Like, it was a really, I guess in a way, that's like the offensive play calling and decision making of who to play and when really was confusing to me, as far as especially the running backs.
Yeah. And my only like conspiracy theory, like not even conspiracy, but like as I try to put myself in the place of DeMarco and of Jeff Levy, here's where I'm at. My thought is, look, our line's not run blocking very well. Like, they're just not. So we're gonna need somebody that can get 1 to 2 yards when there's no yards there, right? And of the roster right now, that's Tawi and that's Marcus Major. Just from a physical build standpoint, right? For them both to be right at around 220 pounds, they can do that. Then you add in the component, if we do get a crease and we do get a hole, Towie ain't taking it to the house. Like, there ain't no way he's taking one to the house. Like, that ain't happening. Marcus Major, there's a chance, right, that it really could house it. And I think that's the thought process behind it. I agree with you that Towie had the hot hand. Some of those substitutions are him being tired and all whatnot, but I just think that's kind of the position. It's kind of like we were, as much as everybody hated it, and I did too, everybody always talks about, for instance, the Baylor game where Mike Stoops just lined us up 8 yards off and they just ran curls the whole way down the field, right? And everybody starts booing. And if you remember, they went to press coverage after the crowd started booing. And you remember what the very next play was? Touchdown. Like, so it's kind of that deal of, yes, this is annoying that we're giving up a 6-yard curl route all the way down the field. But the minute we come up to anything else in coverage, we're just getting burnt down the field. So what's the right call,
Well, I think it's one of those things of like, I think both can be true to some extent. It's like last year when we were in the Texas game, right? As much as I know nobody wants to think about that game for us. You had the package, the Wildcat package that you brought out, and you ran all the way down the field to like the 20, and then you go back to your base offense and then can't move the ball. It's like, I understand that you're not gonna be able to run that package the entire game because they're just gonna start, load Nate in the box and game over. But at the same time, it was like the timing just felt weird, right? Like you literally you score a touchdown. Howie had time to rest, and then he just doesn't come out and doesn't play like the entire next series. You know what I mean? So it's like, and I have nothing against Marcus Major. It was one of those. It just felt like that momentum that a player like letting that, like trying to let Towie. It's like you got to let Towie try to build momentum. If he makes big plays, which he did on that scoring drive, you want to try to get him, if you can get him rolling, right? Get his momentum up. And it felt like they leaned way more on Marcus Major to try to get him going. And he ended up in the second half. But I felt like, again, that was more the offensive line. So that's just my question is just, we need to do better.
And let's not, one thing I haven't heard anybody say that I just thought of in this moment, Towie didn't take a snap last week.
Yeah.
So that has to start to lead you to believe that maybe he's not 100%, right? Like maybe he's not fully there and they were trying to keep him from being used up or aggravating whatever was hurt, right, in order to keep him fresh for Iowa State and Texas. I don't know, but that's just a thought. But yeah, I didn't think Marcus Major was as bad as people made it out. 95% of the issues in the run game were without a doubt the offensive line. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the interior, I felt like the tackles played pretty good for the most part throughout the game, even. But the interior, especially I'll just circle them. Raymond Matower for most of that game did not look like offensive linemen. So
yeah, well, I would say this. Number one, I mean, I have to be fair and say I thought they did better than I was anticipating. Like they held up extremely well in the pass game. And I was really nervous about that defensive line just really giving us fits. Now they got some, but that's a good enough D line to give you some fits, right? The run game is a different story. I mean, there definitely was just very little there. Second half, going in that third quarter, I kind of started watching what they changed, and they did get away from the zone a little bit. But this is what's interesting. They also did not run the GT counter. They literally just pulled Guyton. And if you go through that whole sequence where they were really gashing them for the run, here's two things to notice. They quit pulling Matower, and they pulled Guyton from the right side to the left side. And I think we can agree the left side of that offensive line is the stronger side of the line. Even though Everett's not a world beater, he's a scrapper, he's a fighter. He holds in there. So they started just pulling Guyton across and helping clear the way. And that started creating some creases in some lanes, and they even pulled an old Lincoln Riley move where they ran that same, tackle counter look and then threw it out into the flat really quick to Stoops at one point for like an 8-yard gain, so they had some throw ability off that. So yeah, I'm with you. The interior line, cannot argue with you, man. It was not very good.
Yeah, it's the weakest part of that line. So,
And then
um,
my other complaint, the one thing I noticed too, and even going back and watching it today, I was like, man, I forgot how bad this was. And I don't really know how to feel about it, but I feel like this was a problem last year too. And it was coming out of halftime, getting the ball, thinking, okay, here we go. They're going to make some adjustments. They're going to have their script of plays. They're going to be able to move forward. And we looked like we had no idea what we were doing. You had that funky little motion deal with Gavin Freeman, and he didn't know where he was supposed to be. And Dylan Gabriel thinks he's supposed to be faking something, and he's not faking any. I mean, it was weird. Like there were 2 or 3 plays on that sequence that they go, I think they went 4 or 5 plays and out, that you were just like, what are y'all doing? Like y'all came out of halftime, like y'all had a 20-minute halftime for this. Like this is your organized coming out and let's attack them motif. Like this ain't good, man. Like how do
well,
you
and
do that?
well, yeah, I mean that was definitely head scratching. And just again, like you just feel like it's almost like what we would see under Lincoln, where it would be like you go into timeout and then you come out of timeout and people would look more confused, or you wouldn't have the right personnel or something. You're like, you're in timeout. What are you doing? So, but yeah, I mean that, and then the only other thing that we didn't really talk about, punting. The punting was horrendous.
It's
There was
pretty
like,
rough.
I don't even know. I think there was like 3 or 4 shanks on the day. Um, very, very bad day for him. So it's like, I mean, again, it's a game. I think he's been good the rest of the season. Was it Plaster? Is that his name? Plaster?
Yeah, Plaster, yeah.
Um, I think he's been good the rest of the season. So like, I'm not too worried if he can get it right, but it definitely needs improvement. I mean, I think if he keeps doing that, it's like people are going to really start missing Michael Turk. So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was a little bit head scratching and troubling. And again, because of that, OU spent most of the first half in terrible field position. I think we started inside the 15 2 or 3 times in the first half. And I don't care how good you are offensively. That's tough to go the length of the field on that. So but look, on the road. Oh, and I forgot to say, shout out to the Cincinnati Bearcat faithful. Every person in our Discord that went to the game, everybody on Twitter that went to the game, nothing but talking about how incredibly loud that stadium was. For as small as it was of a stadium, dude, they packed it in and they packed it out and they brought the thunder. And matter of fact, good old Travis Skull on the ref was basically kind of calling out our student section, because he said, dude, their student section was, I mean, just all about it. He was like, if OU could ever have this kind of student section, it'd be incredible.
yeah, yeah, it was
And
wild. And like I said, everybody was. I mean, you could tell on the broadcast. Even it was. I remember it was kind of funny at the beginning of the broadcast because like they were even having to like you could tell that they were having to talk louder because it was so loud
yeah,
in the stadium. Just before even before kickoff. So
yeah. And I mean, it affected us, right? We had a snap that almost resulted. We are very lucky it didn't result in a touchdown for Cincinnati, as it glances off DG's shoulder pad. And then the other one where Rame just doesn't snap it, and the whole O line it's like, what
at
are you
least it
doing,
didn't.
bro?
At least it didn't hit him in the family jewels like Caleb Williams.
Yeah, yeah, that's always a bad day. So, anyways, but no, all in all, this is a big win, man. This was a test, and we said, or at least I think I said, that this was going to kind of be how this game went. I said that Cincinnati's defense would keep this game tight and make it feel uncomfortable for a while, and they definitely did into the second half. But the defense played so well, it honestly wasn't that uncomfortable, which is crazy to think about.
Well, and we're
Like,
going to talk again. I haven't talked about this a lot, but we're going to talk about this later about
yeah, maybe some
why this
reasons, right?
maybe this why the scoreboard doesn't show how dominant OU was in that victory.
Yeah, maybe not. So let's talk some picks first, though, right? Shall we? So we picked 7 games over the weekend, me, you, and Troy against the spread. We picked Florida State and Clemson, Colorado, Oregon, Ole Miss versus Bama, UCLA versus Utah, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Texas and Baylor, and then of course OU. And we'll start here.
You
Jared.
by the way, we picked 6 games. I don't even know. We picked never mind, we picked OU and never mind.
Yes.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can count on occasion.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Jared starts off the pick season 2-3-1 because we had a push in the Ohio State Notre Dame game. And so that one ended up being a push. So he goes 2-3-1. Troy goes 4-2-1. And can I say, ladies and gentlemen, 5-1-1 to start off the season. That is not too shabby, ladies and gentlemen. Just go ahead and throw your life savings on all my picks, and you will be absolutely poor by the end of the season. So,
yes, moving along. You done?
And so, yeah, I'm fine. After you sending endless text messages on Saturday, giving it up to yourself, I just had to have a little fun there of giving it up for myself. So, yeah.
Which one of us was really high on Kip Lewis before before he arrived on campus?
That would be you.
Okay, just throwing it out there. Go ahead. So let's move on. Let's keep it going.
The other thing that I think we have to talk about, and I wanted to kind of separate it from the game because, look, it is what it is. But the one of the trending hashtags, at least in the Oklahoma City region for Twitter on Saturday, was hashtag Big12 Conspiracy, and it had to do with a certain pass on the sideline that was reviewed by instant replay and still considered a catch despite the fact that his foot was well out of bounds. We had a guy be tackled, and then the DB still almost get an interception, but the referee determined that it was an uncatchable ball. Therefore, it was not pass interference. And we had a few we had Rondell Bothroyd getting a sack while being held at the exact same time, which was really impressive to watch. So yeah, there were just a couple of.
Well, you didn't even mention it was even like, we had this isn't something that I think people forget too. The threats when he had the play that they threw a flag on it, surprisingly, because they kind of had to when Dylan went to slide, and it was helmet to helmet contact. Like it was textbook targeting. And they reviewed.
I don't think it was helmet, but it was definitely a shoulder pad into the head and neck area. That's what went.
Yeah. Either way, it's textbook. It was textbook targeting. Yes. And they have to review that. Like they have time to review that.
Yep.
And the Big 12 was like, no, it looks good. It was a late hit. I remember we were all in the Discord like, oh, we're finally going to get a call. We're finally going to get targeting. Threats is going to go out. He's their best player in their secondary probably. And boom, it's the late hit. And I was like, I am confused. So I mean, and I don't want to sound like that fan base, like the official, like we won the game. We won the game. And but this is my point. You have the play like you talked about, the highlight of the end zone play. Where literally it was Farouk, wasn't it? Gets literally tackled, just gets knocked to the ground. The dude nearly makes the interception, but they ruled it uncatchable. So you're basically, and then we had to settle for a field goal. So you take 4 points off the board there.
Yep.
So we could call it 24-6 at that point.
They get 3 points on the drive where he makes the catch on the sideline.
Yeah.
So there's 3 more points there.
Yeah. So that's 24-3, or whatever. I mean, it's just like it was like all these crucial times, like, and then the hold. And again, you end up holding them on 4th and 2 instead or whatever. But like I said, there was the play where he's getting tackled he's literally in front of I sent the video. This is what's funny. I sent all of that stuff to one of my friends that's not even a college football fan. He's a football fan, but he doesn't really watch college football. And I was like, look at this stuff. He's like, dude, how did they not call these?
Yeah.
And I was like, right. I was like, there's literally, I watched it. The ref is 5 yards, exactly 5 yards from the play. and there's nothing blocking him. It's not in the wash. It's like if it's up in the wash of the offensive line and it's all collapsed and everybody's falling on each other. Okay, sometimes they can't see that, right? Like colors blend together, whatever. There's nothing impairing him from seeing it. And instead of calling that a hold or awarding the sack or whatever it was that happened in the play afterwards, well, somebody lined up in the neutral zone, which even then, I went back and watched that play, and it's like, if they're calling that the neutral zone, bro, then like every play is going to get a penalty for somebody being in the neutral zone. Like that was the biggest. I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
the angle was really bad, and you always have to remember that the blue line is not always correct. But if the blue line was correct, even on that one, I was like, okay, I can see where if he was leaning over the right way, he could technically have his helmet in the neutral zone, which is still in the neutral zone. But my Lord, man. And the other side of that is the DBs do the same things that receivers do. They all come out and point at the sideline judge to say, am I good? And obviously he was until it was time for a flag. You had another one on Austin Stogner. That one was a little more bang bang but the DB never turned his head, never looked for the ball, runs straight into Stogner about, I don't know, a full yard to 2 yards before the ball ever gets there, and just no call, right?
Andrew Anthony's
Oh, sorry, and Andrell Anthony's. There was no flag on that one either. And that was clear as day. I mean, and again, is the penalty going to be declined? Yes, but you still throw the flag. Like that flag should have come out well before the ball was caught. And instead there was nothing. And I don't believe there's a flag coming out at all. And so, and I did not add, there was not a holding call yet again called against the opponents. And we blitzed a lot. We had pressure a lot on the day. There was not a single holding call.
There was one, and there was even a play I remember watching live. I don't remember if it was Danny or Kanik, but one of them came through on a blitz, and they go straight through, and the offensive lineman grabbed them by basically hooked their shoulder pad and like almost ripped them to the ground nearly, kind of threw them off course and let Emory Jones roll out away from it. And it's like, how do you think Danny or Kanik just decided to like do some weird like scenic route to the quarterback? Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. Like, I hate to be that guy. You know what I mean? I hate to be that guy. It's like the officiating, but it's like, dude, like there's so many egregious, like the reviews, especially the reviews. Like when you review that play and it's like all of his toes, I don't think he had a toe that was inbounds on the play where they rolled it a catch. It's like you reviewed that. You slowed that down. You zoomed it in. And even on the crappy angles we had on TV, you could tell that was an incomplete pass. You don't give us that. And it's like, okay, that's really crazy that you don't. I'll let that slide. But again, then it's like the tackle in the end zone. Yeah. The rip down right in front. Like it's like the number is so exceedingly high that you just have to be like, bro, like what am I like? I have no other choice. Like at this point, it's like I have to follow the evidence and say, like, I don't know, there has to be a conspiracy. Like there has to be.
There's something, because I'm with you. Like when you look at last year, that again, in what nearly 1,000 snaps of, or not that many, it was no, it was close to that. It was close to that. It was close to 1,000 snaps defensively for OU last year. Not only one holding call, one for the entire season. We are now one game into this season, and we have zero. Despite blitzing a running quarterback who rolled out and ran a lot on the day, there's not a single one.
And honestly, like I've seen some people talking about like, we allowed more yards and Emory Jones didn't even look that good. It's like, look, you gave up what 20 or 30 yards on the pass play that should have been incomplete.
Right.
And then I can think of 2 run plays that netted them like 10 to 15, 20 yards. And there's a hole, like the hold is right there and it's like, that's again, another thing is it's right by the action of the play. It's not on the other side of the field on the sideline. It's like it's the guy that's going to make the play if he's not being
Right.
held, getting held. So it's like honestly, like I would take off a field goal from Cincinnati, and I'd probably call it 100 yards, close to 100 yards of offense off of the board for them, based on if penalties were called
Yeah,
somewhere in that
maybe.
neighborhood. Maybe not 100, but hundreds tops. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right. Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. Like you said, like, look, BV took the high road. There's a human element, and he's right. Like, look, I would say all of us understand that, almost every week there's going to be a call, right? That's just what? Like, how did you not see that? But
right.
we are now 2 seasons in to multiple clear as day calls being missed that are massive calls in the scheme of the game. Like, I mean, think about if Cincinnati catches that interception on the one that they knocked Farouk to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to momentum in that stadium? What happens to the
Well, and
psyche of the team? Like,
and like I said, even if you think about it, like if you think 24-6 actually somehow sounds a lot better than 20-6,
oh
right?
yeah,
And like I said, and to me, it's like I would have given the Sooners probably another, I'd say it should have been 31-6, 31-3. And it's like then we're talking about a dominant win.
yeah,
You know what I
because
mean?
you're also not even including in there our mistakes, right? Like the
Yeah.
missing the Farouk deep ball, like that was 4 more points. So now you're talking, somewhere in the neighborhood of, anywhere from 31 to 35 to potentially 3 points. That feels real nice to say that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. And what's the funny thing about what cracks me up is I guess now Kansas is ranked, but it's like you're literally, if it ends up, it's never going to be proven, right? Like this is all just, we're just thinking this is happening. But if you are conspiring, you're conspiring against your two highest ranked teams. And the ones that are really right, especially this season, are the only ones carrying any sort of attention
Yeah.
on the national stage.
Yeah.
And you're literally trying to sabotage them, I guess. I mean, that's the only thing that can like throws me off, but it's like it's just like it feels like such a petty thing. But of course, the one thing I'll concede is the crew that we had for the Cincinnati game is notorious for making horrible calls. And that's another thing for the Big 12. It's like why do you have these crews that are notorious across every fan base in the Big 12 for calling terrible games?
Yeah, I didn't deep research that much, but I will say this. I mean, I put out on Saturday, and I think it's true. The one thing that OU fans and Texas fans need to agree on and come together on is posting and tagging the Big 12 in these plays that are just blatant mistakes, because it's going to create a narrative around the conference that's just undeniable. And at this point, it's just bad how much of that kind of stuff is happening. And you would think at that point that they're going to start to come down the referees more and try to rein them in, improve them, do whatever, but something needs to be done. It's pretty bad, and we're basically 11 games into
Yeah, we're
a Big 12 conference that just continues to do this kind of crap. So
yeah.
it's pretty wild. Now let's move out of the Big 12 and just college football is, as a whole. Lots of good games this week. Exciting games. Any kind of general thoughts from you from the games this weekend? Because there was
Man,
a lot of big ones with lots of
Clemson,
fireworks.
Florida State was wild.
Yes.
Clemson really should have won that game.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I feel like Clemson played the better game outside of two plays. Um, I felt like they really should. Like I said, it's almost crazy that they lost it. And then obviously everybody's gonna be talking about it, but the Colorado Oregon game.
Oregon.
It was kind of funny because I did see somebody point out, you saw Dan Lanning's speech where
Oh yeah.
we're doing this for wins, not for clicks
We're
or
not
whatever.
chasing clicks, we're chasing wins.
And I thought I was like, it is kind of hilarious that Oregon, the team that has 5,000 different jersey combinations, and now they have shoes that light up or whatever when they overheat or whatever. Yeah, that they're not doing it because that isn't Hollywood or whatever. I have no problem with it, but yeah, I mean it's really what we expected to see out of Colorado when they face a stiffer opponent. Was they don't have anything in the trenches, you
Yeah.
know, either on the offense or defensive side of the ball. I'd say on the defensive side of the ball, they have athletes, but they don't have anybody that's going to be able to consistently, you know, just dominate an offensive line. I saw a lot. They have a lot of those guys that are kind of like those twitchier D linemen where
Oh
they
yeah.
can, if they get in the backfield and they're trouble, it's just getting them there. Um, and it sucks because I think how do you say his name? Shadir? Is it Shadir?
The door.
Shador. Well, whatever. Um, I do think he's a phenomenal quarterback, but he just doesn't have. I mean, he was getting bullied in that game. His offensive line just didn't give him a chance to throw. But yeah, it was a fun game to watch. Even regardless of that, I will give it to Oregon. Their fans were. It was kind of funny. Like as a matter of fact, I had taken a minute just to go grab. I had to go run down to Publix or something, and I remember I had it on the car, and I was listening to it, and they're like, so Colorado's driving, and the Oregon faithful are getting loud again because they want to throw the shutout. And it wasn't. You could hear it on the broadcast how loud it was. So, but yeah, that, and then and I guess to parlay that into my last thing that I really think, and this is, I know we should talk about this a little more in the preview, but USC Colorado, I think is going to be a really dang good game, really really good because USC let Arizona State hanging 28 points on them,
Yep.
and Arizona State got shut out by Fresno State. And they've not shown any sort of offensive output, but they look like a good offensive team against USC. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. You've got a mobile quarterback, which Grinch has never shown that he's been able to really stop. And you have really good skill position players. So I think it's going to be a good game. I mean, USC will probably win because I think they have better offensively. They're better.
Oh yeah.
But as like if that game ends up being 56 to 49 or something, wouldn't shock me.
No. That's gonna feel, that game really does have the potential to feel like an old school Big 12 game, right? The 55 to 45 kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Colorado's defense is any good either.
Yeah.
For that matter. So I think both of those offenses are just gonna up and down the field all day long for sure.
Hey, and I will give a shout out to Dion. Dion took it on the chin. He said, we got a good old butt kicking. It's like there's part of me that gets annoyed at some of the things he does, but I'm like, he also is just him.
Yeah.
Like his guys want to play for him. It's the same thing. I look at him, like, honestly, after really thinking about it, it's like I view him almost in the same light as Baker, where if he's like you're on your team, then you're gonna cheer for him. And if he's not, you hate him. You know what I mean? So I respect him, So anyway, I just want to shout out because, like I said, he took it on the chin, So respect to him for that.
Yeah. One of my big takeaways from the weekend is, I hope that everybody that was so ready to assassinate in the media Brent Venables, because he obviously was not ready to be a head coach because he had some time management issues in his very first year as a head coach, are ready to start saying the same things about Marcus Freeman after he played two of his final plays that lost him a game with 10 players on the field. Yep. 10 players
and
field.
Wasn't one of them coming out of a timeout?
I have no idea, to be honest. I think one was coming out of a timeout. They're talking about, but I mean, how you look out there, how your coaches look out a booth window and don't notice that you only have 10 players, not for one, but for two plays in a crucial moment where you have to win a football game. That's pretty unforgivable. And by the way, you're the old defensive coordinator. That's your side of the ball that you're supposed to know and recognize and do. Man, that was rough. Now, at the same time, I love Marcus Freeman. I like him, right? Yep. I'm just saying, from a media standpoint, that's pretty unforgivable from a head coaching standpoint to do that in that game. And so we'll see if they treat that one fairly. But give credit to Ohio State. They were more they definitely showed more toughness and physicality than I expected them to be able to, and that's really what got them there. So I thought that was an interesting game, fun game. And then I mean, staying up to watch the USC game, by the way, Caleb Williams is him. I mean,
Caleb Williams is
dude, I just watching the first quarter. My wife was reading as I was watching that game, and I looked over and I said, he is good for 8 wins by himself.
Yeah.
Like, just him is good for 8 wins on almost any team. And if they don't find another Caleb Williams to take his place, they may have more talent by then through recruiting that maybe it doesn't matter. But man, right now, USC would be in so much trouble if it wasn't for Caleb Williams.
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. If they were playing, even though the Pac-12 looks good this year, way better than I thought they would, the teams do. If he was playing in the Big Ten, bro, like he would be those defenses are a lot stouter, especially in the trenches.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it's just wild, man. It's wild to think about that. And again, the Pac-12 this year, I heard them talking about this on the radio the other day. It might be one of the better conferences in all of college football, but they also have all the good quarterbacks. They have Caleb Williams, they have Penix Jr., they have DJ Uiagalelei, like they have Cam Rising. I mean, all the quarterbacks that you know by name outside of Drake May, right, are there. Like, nobody at Alabama is
Bo
blowing the
Nix, you
world
even
down.
mention Bo Nix.
Oh, Bo Nix. Yeah, sorry, Bodacious. I apologize. I mean, they are stacked with quarterback play, and that is a difference maker. There is no doubt about it. That makes
100%.
a huge, huge difference. So it was a wild week, man. College football this year is fun. And I would say this lastly, I know we're only 4 weeks in and it's still hard to tell, but it really has felt like the last, I don't know, 3-4 years probably. There's definitely 2 teams that you just stack and go, one of these 2 will be in the championship. And there might be a third that you think maybe could get there legitimately before the season starts. Right now, man, it's Georgia, and there's probably about 8 to 9 other teams that I feel like could end up in that playoff, and that makes college football fun.
And this, I know they ended up winning the game, and they ended up winning it fairly big, but Alabama does not look like a good team this year. They do not look good.
If they get the quarterback play and the defensive play they did the second half of that game through the rest of the season, they'll be a problem.
Well, but their offensive
they're
line,
not what they have been. They are not what they have been.
Well, and their offensive line is not playing well either. So,
right.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's just a weird year, which I guess is in a way maybe like a good thing for OU.
Yeah.
If there's some way that you run through the schedule and you end up undefeated, it's like there's a lot of room for you to get in the playoff.
Oh goodness, yeah.
Even with a loss or something. So yeah, just a wild year. But like I said, I've really enjoyed and I also really liked the or I didn't really like, but it was kind of funny to see the Ryan Day versus Lou Holtz thing and that whole
dude, his post game was wow. That's all I know to say. Like, that was very intense, very over the top. That was Matt Campbell-esque, shall I say. Ryan Day was. If you haven't looked up Ryan Day's post game on the field interview, it feels like Matt Campbell is the coach of Ohio State in that interview.
Yeah, it was. I don't know what was going on there. So yeah, I don't know. It was a wild. It was a wild day of football. Like I said, it was one of those things where it was like this was like one of those weird times that like it was this early in the season where I was like trying to change between games so much. You know what I mean? Like I got YouTube TV, so they have like the quad where you can watch 4 games at once or whatever, and it's really cool. But it's like, dude, even then I was like, well, they don't have this game. And I was having to like flip through and try to find, like, it was so wild. There was so much stuff going on. So yeah, there's just college football is, I'm going to say this, and I know you're not going to agree with me. If the transfer portal and some of that has done anything good, it's bring a little bit more parity across college football, in my opinion.
Maybe so. It's an interesting thought.
Which, by the way, you know who's You know who's not using the transfer portal though?
Mike Gundy.
Mike Gundy. Yeah, that guy. How did he make it back to Stillwater? How did he make it back to Still? You let Iowa State. But by the way, guy, did you watch that game? Did you see any of that?
I did watch some of that game.
34 points.
Yeah.
34
For a
points to
team
Iowa
that had
State.
been on life support offensively all year.
Yeah. They had 10. You know, did I tell you the stat? Do you know how many passing yards Oklahoma State had in the first quarter?
No.
10.
Wow.
So I mean, obviously they end up doing some offensive things, but I also think like it's one of those weird things to like the little brother up north. It's like I don't understand how you can defend the guy anymore. Like
Right.
that's really what I want to know is like the fact that he sits down and in the post game and he's like, well, like we just didn't win the third down conversion battle. That's it. It's like, well, like what? And he's like, we didn't do bad. Like we don't have any major issue. Like the things he says, I'm like, bro, what are you like? I don't know what sort of copium you're just having to go back to your house and do or something, but this is wild to me, bro. Like
Yeah.
even for
He
the whole loyal and true thing, I was like, I don't know how people aren't trying to run him out of town.
Yeah, he needs a new clause in his contract like they did for the Iowa offensive coordinator, but his needs to be that he spends X amount of hours recruiting every day. Because that's the stuff he doesn't want to do. And that's why their roster is in the situation that it's in, is because he has chosen not to recruit and he's chosen to avoid the portal completely. And that's how you get a roster of that level. So well, that's our review of the Cincinnati game. It's kind of our review of college football week 4. It was an exciting one. We look forward to one again. We will do all we can to get a preview pod up of the Iowa State game coming up this weekend, which will be a night game in Norman. Let's go.
Oh, David Stone's a big recruiting weekend.
David
David
Stone will be
Stone,
in the house.
who is it Koye, I think, going to be there too, and somebody I
He
don't remember
might
who.
come down for that game. I haven't seen an official list yet of it. I know David Stone has said he will be there, but I haven't seen a list outside of that. So
Yeah.
we'll try to keep you updated on that on Wednesday as well. We do the preview bod, so come back, check it out, and we may do it live. We'll just see kind of how the week plays out. We're trying to do that more and more. Again, it's just hard with family schedules to always guarantee it, but we will let you know surely the day of, early in the day, whether or not we will be going live or not that night with our preview. So man, we hope you've enjoyed it. We have, and we're grateful that you're listening. We're having a great time, and we hope you are too. I'm Daryl, that's Jared, and we will talk to you guys later.
Bye, Baker.